Yes, this video is exactly what it says in the title. We are going to talk about the most overrated characters in Genshin Impact. Of course, from a meta and gameplay perspective, not about aesthetics or personality or any of that stuff. Even though I would love to talk about bad taste in waifus like Huta. Disclaimer, just because I say a character is overrated does not mean they are bad. A good character can be overrated by the community just overhyping their strength and thinking they're a lot stronger than they actually are, saying they're all that when they're in fact not all that. You know, characters that all the meta slaves flock over to as a result of YouTubers hyping them up. Meta this, meta that. Have you ever met a girl before? With accessibility considered, so I'll only really touch on limited 5-star characters. That being said, this video is not based on my personal opinion. Everything said here is 100% objectively true and factual, and essentially, I'll be taking a shit on your favorite character and you're gonna wipe for me. Wait, no, that sounds weird. So please, feel free to take this video very seriously and get mad. And if you really want to go the extra mile, my address is... Let's start low on the list. Kazuha. Yes, I know, even I use Kazuha a lot. He's just really easy to use, so even I'm guilty. But hey, I gotta talk about him, because too many people think he's a direct upgrade to Sucrose and a must-pull. He's not. He's an upgrade only in some situations, like mono teams where Sucrose's EM buff would be useless, and freeze teams where he can do some pretty good shatter damage with his high EM. But in most situations, he's just a side grade, and even a downgrade in situations where an EM buff would be better than a damage bonus buff, or teams where you want fast animal application like Taser, and Salad, which is a Hyper Bloom team where Hyper Bloom is triggered by an animal character's Electro Swirls. Hell, even Xiao will do a better job than Kazuha and Salad. Kazuha does feel better to play though. He has better grouping, and his ability to jump up like that allows him to just straight up avoid attacks. That's why he's low on this list, but people still make him out to be way better than he actually is. And don't even get me started on those clowns who run him on a crit build. Next up is Yelan. A lot of people think she's a 5-star upgrade of Xingqiu, when in reality, the opposite is true. Well, except the 5-star part. Yeah, she's a downgrade to Xingqiu, but at the price of an upgrade. Can't really blame her though, Xingqiu is just broken. Let me explain. We first need to compare the two. They serve essentially the same purpose, making your enemies wet, but Xingqiu is better at wetting them because femboys just hit different. Maybe I'm just biased because my Yoimiya is C6 and Yelan's lower hydro application just can't keep up. Truly a suffering from success moment. In terms of damage dealing capability, they're both pretty similar. Yelan has higher numbers to make up for the fact that Xingqiu scales with attack, which has multiple sources of buffs, while she scales with HP, which doesn't really have access to such buffs. Unless you're talking about her C4, but not everyone has C4 Yelan. Actually, maybe some of you spent that money to get it just to convince yourselves that Yelan is better than Xingqiu, in which case I'll just leave you alone. As for support capability, yeah, Yelan doesn't even compare. Xingqiu has faster hydro application, damage reduction, interruption resistance, and even some healing. And because he's available in the Star Glare shop, and also simply because he's been in the game for so long, his cons are very accessible, which give him extra damage, hydro restaurant, and energy refund. What does Yelan do? Hey look, a neat little damage bonus for your on-fielder. And that's it. And yeah, this damage bonus doesn't apply to transformative reaction, so if you play her in Hyper Bloom, it's irrelevant for most of your damage. I mean, yeah, your Hyper Bloom trigger is usually off the field anyway, but if for whatever reason you decide to play them on field, it still doesn't affect them. However, you can still use Xingqiu and Yelan together, so they can generate particles for each other, but if you have to pick one among them, Xingqiu is just better, and Yelan is used for the other Abyss team if they need a second Xingqiu. Despite being worse than Xingqiu, Yelan is still similar to him, and with Xingqiu being a really good character, obviously Yelan is also really good. So yeah, relatively low on this list, but she still made the list considering how many people think she's an upgrade to Xingqiu. Yeah, she has armpits, which is pretty nice, but Xingqiu has a cost. Coming in at number 3, a lot of you are probably gonna come at me for this. It's the Raiden Shogun. Okay, this first part is probably no longer the case, but I've seen way too many people who think you can just slap Raiden into any team and make her into a universal battery. No, that's not how it works. Raiden's team comps are pretty restricted since she wants field time. Yeah, 7 seconds, but it's still field time. So she usually can't be paired with anyone else who wants field time. Yes, I know I paired her with Yoimiya back when I got full stars in Abyss for the first time, but please ignore that. I was still learning. The only teams she really fits into are teams where the main damage sources are high cost elemental bursts from characters who require little field time. So these teams would otherwise be quick swap teams, and the energy generation part of Raiden's burst is mostly there to make up for the fact that she takes up field time and is the one absorbing most of the energy particles, leaving very few for her teammates. Take her out of the team and funnel particles into your characters and you'll get similar results, albeit higher ER requirements, but you can get some damage amp if her replacement is an animal swirler. Yeah, I'm talking about National in this example. Still, she does some pretty good damage, so she does make a considerable difference to these teams, but she's not as an essential pull as people make her out to be. Okay, what about her other playstyles? Ever since her release, she's had a prominent hyper carry role in her own hyper carry team, serving as an electro damage dealer, while the release of Dendro gave rise to a Hyper Bloom playstyle with Dendro and Hydro teammates because of her fast off-field electro application. She has proven to be really strong in both of these roles, but she's not the only one who can fill these roles, and probably not even the best option. Kachin can be an electro damage dealer who's just as strong, if not even stronger, since she doesn't rely on all teammates using their bursts. For Hyper Bloom, Shinobu does it more slowly, but she offers some pretty nice healing. Unlike the Raiden Shogun, however, these two characters actually have a personality. I'm not even gonna lie, if I had C6 Kujosara, I'd much rather use her with Kaching than Raiden. Coming up at number 2, Hu Tao. Oof, I'm gonna have a lot of fun here, because I really don't like Hu Tao. Where do we even start? Pyro DPS monster? Strongest single target damage dealer? A must pull? Yeah, if you're still living in 2021. Alright, let's address the Pyro DPS part. One word. Xiangling. Thank you. Xiangling is broken. But before I elaborate any further, can we all just agree that Hu Tao is single target focused? Like, yeah, she can do some AoE if you position her charge attack and perfectly penetrate multiple enemies that are lined up, but usually you'll only end up hitting like 2 enemies at a time. In contrast, with Xiangling's Pyronado, which actually is AoE, you'll hit all the enemies around you. Plus, with her access to Snapshot, you can swap off her and the Pyronado will keep all of the buffs it had during casting. So you can do some other stuff like using another party member's skill, or do some DPSing with an on-fielder, or, you know, click like and subscribe. Yeah, this is a checkpoint. Also, Xiangling's cons are pretty easy to obtain since she's also available in the Star Glitter shop like Xingqiu, and one copy of her is given to players for free. Not to mention she's a day 1 character, so a lot of players should have her at least at C4, which is all she needs to perform well. I mean, not all players have it, but let's be real here. C4 Xiangling is a lot more accessible than Hu Tao, a limited 5-star, and probably stronger too. Look, I'm saying all this because it's just true. You think I like Xiangling? No, I avoid playing her like the plague. Oh, but Xiangling needs to be buffed by Bennett to function, while Hu Tao doesn't need buffs. Well, actually, the reason why she doesn't need buffs is because a lot of her damage comes from her HP stat, making most buffers not worth using with her. So even if she doesn't need buffs, slotting in a buffer won't really make a significant difference, especially Bennett's healing, which will mess with her damage. Why are you comparing her to Xiangling? She's designed for a single target. Just use her against bosses. She'll out-damage Xiangling for sure. Oh, you're looking for single target damage? May I interest you in the almighty Hyper Bloom? Honestly, Hyper Bloom is so broken it's not even fair. I feel like Hyper Bloom is probably Hoyo's biggest mistake and they're probably regretting what they added to the game. But yeah, Hyper Bloom is crazy strong for how little investment it requires. And unless your Hu Tao is heavily invested, she has no chance of competing with Hyper Bloom. I'm talking like at least C1 Hu Tao with the Staff of Homa and godly artifacts, but even then, that should be the standard for Hu Tao anyway, because imagine playing C0 Hu Tao with Dragon's Bane. Ugh. Oh, and also Hyper Bloom works well in AoE, not just because you get more Dendro cores in AoE and therefore more Hyper Bloom instances, but also because Hyper Bloom actually does damage in a very small AoE. Not that it matters in most cases, but it's something to keep in mind. Oh, and guess what? Hyper Bloom doesn't require buffs either, and it's a lot more brain dead to play. Okay, let's say you're a Dendro hater and you want to avoid Hyper Bloom like the plague, and you just want to play Hu Tao. Sure, Hu Tao is very strong, but only under the right conditions. She needs to be under half HP or her damage just goes down, so you want to avoid healing, but since she takes away her own HP every time she uses her skill, she'll be at low HP most of the time. However, it would be nice to, you know, not die, so you either need to be really good at managing it or bring a shielder. And if you do bring a shielder, that's 1 team slot gone. Another thing is that you need to be good at animation canceling her charge attacks as they take pretty long. So how much damage she can do is limited by how well you can play her. And if you can't make the most out of her potential, which is probably the case for most Hu Tao mains because the average Genshin player has the motor skills of a rock to match their basic taste in waifu, you're better off playing someone else. So in most cases, you'll see better results with the one and only best girl, Yoimiya. Okay, I know the Yoimiya versus Hu Tao debate has died down a lot ever since Yoimiya's initial release, but I know for a fact that it's still going on in some communities. Totally not because I'm the one fanning the flames, but anyway, I am Team Yoimiya if it wasn't already obvious enough. Look, here's another thing. Hu Tao's biggest advantage over Yoimiya is also her biggest limitation. Since she takes advantage of Vaporize so well, she's basically confined to double Hydro Vaporize teams, but it's okay. Hu Tao mains are fine with that because they're mundane and boring. Yes, Yoimiya prefers to be played in Vaporize teams too, but she also has other teams that are also very viable, like Mono Pyro and Overloaded, while Hu Tao is completely worthless without Vaporize. Yoimiya also doesn't have to chase down enemies, but Hu Tao does with her non-existent stamina that she spent on charge attacks and dash canceling. And most importantly, Yoimiya is cuter. And prettier. No, I don't take criticism. I'm probably gonna piss off some Hu Tao mains by saying all this, but what are they gonna do? They don't have the stamina to catch me. I used to be a Hu Tao main. I actually used to like Hu Tao until her fanbase ruined her for me. I know every fanbase has a small group of toxic members which shouldn't represent the whole community, but goddamn the toxic side of Hu Tao fans is so loud and annoying. They're like the K-pop fans of the Genshin community, or NPCs, or internet Philip. That reason alone would probably be enough to place her at number 2. I myself have a C1 R1 Triple Crown Hu Tao who's permanently benched, and I wouldn't even give her away if I could. I want to keep her there so she can rot until the end of time. Let's just move on. But before we move on to number 1, I want to give an honorable mention,
well, in this case, dishonorable mention to Nahida. Alright, look, Nahida is very strong, I won't deny that. I use her quite a lot myself when I use my Dendro teams. However, she's not that much stronger than Dendro Traveler because Dendro Traveler is actually pretty decent, and despite being stronger, she's not necessarily better in every situation. They both have their strengths and weaknesses. Her most obvious advantage is that she doesn't need her burst for off-field Dendro application, which pretty much has infinite AoE by the way, so she can invest less into ER and more into damage. But her application comes from marks on the enemies that need to be refreshed when new ones spawn in, so wave-based content would be annoying when your team has someone who wants to stay on the field like Sino or Alhaitham, while Traveler doesn't have this issue. Nahida is also not a good Dendro pick for aggravate teams. Her 1.5U Dendro application is guaranteed to wipe out all the Electro Aura from your enemies most of the time, unless you're triggering swirls in AoE. But if you're not, well, you're rarely gonna get any Electro Swirls, which aggravate teams really want for their damage. Give your Traveler, your Yao Yao, or your Kirara a spot on these teams instead. Nahida is obviously still a very good character, so she kinda deserves the hype around her. Except that part of her fan base.
FBI, open up!
Which is why she didn't make the top 5, but I thought I'd still give her a mention here. One thing I personally don't like about the hype around Nahida is that it's partially responsible for making people skip Yoimiya because they decided to put her next to Nahida's debut banner. Personal grievance, let's move on. Alright, I'm sure most of you already know who's gonna be number 1 on this list, since I haven't talked about them yet throughout this video, so unsurprisingly, it's Zhongli. Well, at least among casual players. There's no denying that Zhongli is still very popular among many players, so let's take a look at what his kit offers. A big-ass shield! That's it. Okay, so Zhongli has the strongest shield in the game, we all know that, and his burst offers some crowd control by preventing enemies from moving. What's not to love, right? Yeah, well, he doesn't really offer much else beyond that. His shield offers 20% all res decrease, but it's less than what's offered by Viridescent and Deepwood sets. So basically, he takes up a team slot without really providing anything that significantly improves team damage. And well, that team slot could have been used by a damage buffer. So he's really only an optimal choice in teams that are self-sufficient with 3 characters, and the 4th slot is basically free, like Hu Tao teams, but Hu Tao user. Oh yeah, and Mono Geo. Okay, he's not useless, but he's made out to be a must-have in most teams, which is obviously not the case. He's useful for teams where a character wants to stay on the field attacking, like Melt Ganyu or Yoimiya, so the strong shield helps to prevent them from being staggered. Outside of that though, he doesn't really have much synergy with anyone either thanks to his Geo element, making his off-field Geo application from his Pillar Waves just useless. Basically, slotting him into your team just because of his strong shield despite his lack of synergy means he's kind of forcing his way into your team. Yeah, sure it works, but there are almost always better options. As for his personal damage, it's bad. But my Zhongli did 300k on his Meteor. Of course he did with his hyper-invested build that you made by sacrificing all of his utility while also giving him every existing damage buff in the game. And you can only do it once per rotation, so you're just gonna spend the rest of the rotation doing basically 0 damage because you didn't bring a real damage dealer. So is that really practical? That took way too many takes. I wanna say Zhongli is at least a good pick for comfort, but if you look at the enemies during the Sumeru best cycles, the enemies did so much damage that even a full HP build Zhongli's shield wasn't enough. Who knows what we'll get in future cycles with newer Fontaine enemies. What? We're already past number 1. That's the end of the video. We're expecting more? Anyway, these are the top 5 most overrated Genshin characters. In my opinion at least. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments which character you think should have been on this list, and why. Maybe I forgot someone. With my trash memory, it's not surprising if I completely forgot that some of the characters even exist. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Maybe comment down below if you want to see more stuff like this that's not necessarily guides. Follow my socials too. Alright, see ya.